left side, the young German up-and-coming Terran player. Maybe one day Big Gabe will take him under his wing. This is BattleB.
And in the bottom right, as the red Zerg, he's neither soul nor spirit. He is SoulSpirit.
If I think of the kind of Zerg player that SoulSpirit is, it's a little bit like a Vanya Light. Also a player that likes to make a lot of units. He can be on both ends of the spectrum when it comes to extreme greed and then nothing but units, or let's make a few more units early on and get the job done in a very simple and straightforward way. I'm sure that he plays Hive every now and then. I'm sure that he's no stranger to the Vipers and maybe late game lurkers, but that's not really what his strength is. I know he's a big fan of Muda Ling Bane, just get those 2-2 upgrades. And I still remember the Muslim going over the replay when he went up against SoulSpirit. He's like, he's so all in, Alice. Look at this. He is so all in. 55 drones, but a lot of Zerg units. That's what SoulSpirit likes to do.
Yeah, I think it's not something that benefits the Zerg necessarily to be totally wackadoo and crazy. Like if this was a Protoss player and I was talking about some fun strategies, I'm probably talking about like proxies and early aggression and maybe even still throwing out some Stargate stuff because, you know, why not, I guess. But for Zerg, I feel like it has a lot more to do with the styles of what they do when they have 3 hatcheries, not necessarily before then. A whole lot of people still throwing out those roach cheeses. I know, you know, Bly still is happy to see that. But yeah, for SoulSpirit, it's kind of like what he does with the 3 hatcheries. You know, bunch of lings, kind of trying to get the jump on a Terran player that's unexpecting, doesn't control their Hellions correctly. Perhaps like more commitment to just an army in general. So I'm really picking up for SoulSpirit. And that can sometimes really throw off the Terrans pacing, who are kind of expecting a Zerg player to almost always go for the drones, not necessarily the army. Because they're kind of supposed to, but every now and again, you get a very aggressive Zerg player who finds success.
And even extreme things like not building any evolution chambers, you know? The Terran could be on 1-1, 2-2 upgrades on the way, and then suddenly it's like, holy smokes, that's a lot of Zerg, and then you click on the ridiculous amount of Lings and Banes, you're like, 0-0? And before you realize that your opponent is ultra all-in, you realize that all you have left is a medevac and 4 Marines, and you don't really stand a chance, even if those Lings and Banes don't have any upgrades. But I'm sure that BattleB is pretty familiar with his teammate. I think these guys are pretty close to each other on the ladder. I do think they both like to use a barcode every now and then, especially SoulSpirit. He always plays under a barcode, but these pro gamers, they're pretty good at figuring out who's behind which barcode. So even if there is barcode practice and barcode games that have happened, BattleB is probably going to recognize every single game that he has played against SoulSpirit.
I don't think there's going to be any confusion as to how they play, but rather just, you know, the actual actions in the game. BattleB is going for 3cc build. He doesn't have that second gas even still. Oh, he just got in the natural. That's what it was. So, yeah, the 3cc is priority. And it does look to be adding on some Banshees. So perhaps a little afraid in a shorter map against what can be an aggressive Zerg for Roach play. That is not what we're having here. Just more Queens, more drones, delayed his speed a little bit, more on the macro side of the opener. And maybe SoulSpirit's turn over a new leaf. Maybe he's going to try and play something different. But now, if we're not talking about SoulSpirit being aggressive, as I said, kind of on those 3 bases, and we're talking about the Terran eventually hitting a 3-base attack, which on Berlingrad can be quite feisty. So we'll get into that in minutes, sure, but just that's the direction we're heading, is Terran first attack. How's that going to go?
Yeah, but I just like this opening as well from BattleB. It's one of the oldest ones in the book, and it kind of forces the Zerg to play pretty straight up, right? It's hard to really get a lot done with basic units. If you know Banshees are going to be out, the Hellions are so damn good against Lynx early on. This is the kind of build where if you find damage, that's awesome. And of course, ideally, you want to grab a couple drones here and there, especially the ones that are bouncing between bases, or maybe get a Kenso on the 4th base, grab a Queen. But this just kind of sets BattleB up for that normal TVZ, in which he probably feels very confident. As long as the nerves don't get to him, it is, of course, a game on the mainstream, and that's not something that he's done too many times. So sometimes these guys can get a little more nervous, and the Marine Micro may not be as good as it would be at a regular ladder game or in the opening rounds of a random online tournament. But I like the setup, I like where he's going, and I think this is where he's going to thrive.
I do think the first test of nerves and micro is the Marine drop. The Hellions and Banshee, I don't know. There's something about the units not being necessarily the unit of the matchup, right? The Hellions are early game, sometimes aggressive like this, and then oftentimes just made sure to be kept alive to defend their third CC. So we don't usually see people, I guess, try to be fancy with them, is what I'm getting at. You know, they don't try to be fancy with Hellions and Banshees so much more often, but they can oftentimes get very excited about their first Marine drop, 16 Marines, if they have a ton of damage to do, get overexcited, get too fancy, and then actually lose out. And when that happens in these higher level games, when the Terran player is almost too fast for their own good and they lose control, they it does tend to, I feel like, snowball. So I'm just like, that's the first and biggest test in my eyes, is the first control of the Marines. However, that does come into effect, whether there's a drop or it just actually does a good old-fashioned push. But talking a lot about micro, Banshees get in there, deal 5 drones worth of damage, and both live. So it's a pretty strong start for BattleB.
Yep, needs to be careful here though. There's another Overseer. Double Overseer was morphed on the side of SoulSpirit. But I gotta say, I like the Banshee movement. I think he did a very good job in avoiding all the Overlords, and then he activated Cloak relatively early in case there would be another one that he couldn't have possibly known about. So pretty sweet little Banshee move. Maybe with slightly better control towards the left side, he could have grabbed 1 or 2 extra drones. But I think so far so good for the German Terran. He lost 1 Hellion and he has killed 9 drones. I mean, most Terran players would absolutely sign for that.
Yes, they would. Much better game for BattleB. SoulSpirit, perhaps, you know, not really as a Zerg player finding your groove quite yet. But now with Centrifugal Hooks done, with
Baneling run by.
Macro Hatchery almost done. Yeah, the Baneling run by might actually get some damage done. I was going to say, you don't really want to pull that direction. Oh, very nice split. Only one SCV went down. Oh.
4 Banelings for 1 SCV. Also a trade that will gladly take. That Armory is very close to finishing up, so these Hellions could morph into Hellbats. Like the tank positioning, like it's close enough that it's dangerous, but it's far enough away that you won't just immediately lose it. Now SoulSpirit is thinking about fully sending it, but then changes his mind, so the tank gets a great shot off on the majority of the Banelings. And we can really see why we have been hyping up BattleB, because his control is immaculate so far, and SoulSpirit looks a little indecisive.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he was really hoping that the pullback would be 2-3 seconds later, and then he would have gotten that surround, would have just clobbered the push. But very good control so far for BattleB, who I think is most importantly not letting the excitement get to him. You know, I'm winning on the A stream, the first game, and that's really exciting. No, he's playing it nice and steady, actually just kind of slow pushing scans, really just to check out what's happening. Didn't even use the opportunity to kill a creep tumor. Now he can if he wanted to. But this is a chokehold right now.
There are some units coming in from the bottom left as well, though, but we left a couple of Hellbats behind too, so let's see if those Hellbats are good enough to keep the Marines safe. Banelings do get pretty decent connections, but they won't get all the Marines. It's not even close. Now only 7 Banelings remain, and the army supply is still in favor of the Terran. The upgrades are kind of evened up at this point. Okay, there is finally 1 Baneling for SoulSpirit. That gets a juicy connection. But right when you think that's going to buy him some extra time, we have the 3rd wave of reinforcements arriving. And I'm starting to look at this Terran army and the amount of medevacs that we have here. We can do this all day. The only mistake that BattleB is making is that he's not getting +2 armor. But we can just pretend that that's not happening.
Yeah, let's pretend it's not. Very much just didn't have quite enough resource issue. Now he's pulling back from this particular attack. And I don't know if he has to... Yeah, I think he does have to pull back, you know, a lot more. Yeah. The Hydra's also coming out. Plenty of Banelings left over after that last swell. And he does have to take things quite seriously. Realize he's not going to win the game right here, right now, but he will be able to take advantages. So maybe going into some more Widow Mines is going to complicate these battles. That poor tank left kind of alone, so I think it will get overwhelmed. And BattleB now entirely pushed back. SoulSpirit can finally get into a bit of his own groove, get some attacks going, get 5 bases up and running. Drone count's really not that all impressive, but at least he started his upgrades. I was kind of worried he would forget about that with all the pressure. That's about it. And he's going to try and go into that hive. So we'll see if he's successful in that.
Yeah, he kind of lives, right? But he doesn't live in a very sweet spot, does not have the map presence you want to have as a Zerg. He's not able to find any damage on the other side of the map, knows that he's going to have to deal with a bunch of Widow Mines. I think we still have 2 Overseers left over that we morphed earlier during the Banshee phase. He was actually down economically in workers. How often do you see a Zerg down in workers versus the Terran?
Yeah, not too often, and still a couple more drones are on the way. But I was woeing at the Ghost Academy timing. That is extremely fast. I mean, technically you can afford it on 4 bases, but usually what you would do first is you would afford a bunch of Marauders, kind of like a first wave or 2 of Marauders, then have the Ghost Academy maybe on the way like now or 30 seconds from now. So the only thing I think that can be problematic for is if you jump the gun on the actual Ghost production. Having the Ghost Academy is one thing, but this is still very much a layer-based game. Lots of Zerg units, just more of the quantity versus quality thing. And that's not exactly what you'd get Ghosts for a lot of the time.
That was actually very nice with SoulSpirit there. I was afraid that those Widow Mines were going to get amazing connections, but instead they blow up the majority of the Marines. And SoulSpirit feels that it's his moment to pounce right now, as he still has a lot of Banelings in the mix. Will the Banelings connect with the SCVs? They do somehow. Only 6 SCVs go down. I really thought a whole lot more would go down. And it seems like SoulSpirit left quite a few units in the main base to deal with the remains of that initial drop. And a good little sequence of events here for the French Zerg. As he's going to pick up another SCV that's building the command center. And that is kind of going to be it for now. But that all went pretty damn well for our French Zergy.
That was kind of the worst moment to have all that happen, too. It's just, you let a battle go poorly, and depending on what's happening outside of that, it can be okay or really, really, really suck. And I feel like that kind of really sucked. It was just as the Terran had invested into more command centers, more upgrades, and more technology. So they kind of broke. They're not going to remax as fast, although, obviously Zerg almost always remaxes faster. It's just kind of one of those things where you could see the snowball starting, and now you have to desperately try and stop it, when right now the splash amount for the Terran is not high. He could get overwhelmed. We're talking about 2 Widow Mines at this point. That is it.
Yeah, but we do have quite a few buy units on the high ground. 1 tank does pop right before that factory goes down, but there indeed was only 1 tank remaining before that, and that tank did go down. But the micro on the high ground was good. If BattleB would have messed up there, that's a new one. I've never used that one before. Then it could have been really bad, because there were a couple of Banelings going up that high ground, but the splits on the high ground were good, and he will be fine for now. Like, he's still in a perfectly fine spot, but the flawless play of the first 6-7 minutes, yeah, that's not really happening anymore. You can see it in the minimap now as well. It's only SoulSpirit is the one who has way more map vision, way more map presence, and that creep, making it past the halfway mark. That's always a lovely sight for the Zerg.
Right. I mean, the whole like snowballing effect that I was talking about, I mean, it could be very real if he did not micro his army the way that he did. So, good job stabilizing, but I still think that was the hit there, the loss that he took was still a very painful moment, pacing-wise, for Terran versus Zerg, where you really would have had an almost seamless game if SoulSpirit didn't take advantage of that particular moment. You would have had all your bases up, you would have been completely maxed out, probably had a few ghosts, a lot more of the splash units I was talking about, because you wouldn't have been losing them in trades, and it would have been an even more beautiful game. As it is, since BattleB leveled off, everything's totally Gucci. 5th base on the way as a planetary, remembering to get those upgrades that he did fall behind on with the armor, replacing his factory as well. And now as SoulSpirit adds on all this high technology, the Vipers and the Lurkers, well then of course, having Ghosts is exactly what you would want. So there's always that weird kind of moment where you're trying to transition to the late game. Maybe the Zerg quite hasn't, so you start to get overwhelmed. But if the Zerg's also going into that late game, then BattleB has the perfect army.
Yep, it is pretty funny to see 4 goals on the battlefield already, potentially a few more on the way soon. And then it's like, the Moroccan Den is going down. He's like, well, we're kind of ready for that, actually. That is something that the girls deal better with than 100 Zerglings and 100 Banelings.
Yes, yeah, exactly. So, I mean, apparently, so it's kind of weird to say after the first 10 minutes of this game, we are getting ourselves a proper late game TVZ. Yes, SoulSpirit is behind pacing-wise. Again, the Lurker Den, when the ghosts are already out, is really weird to see. Then we get to see what their late game is like. I think BattleB showed us some amazing control and just, good build order as well. But this is a different game almost. TVZ has a different pacing to it when you get into super late game. And we'll see what BattleB's like there, because I feel like I do usually see him win in the mid game. So this is a bit new for me.
I'm completely with you. I've seen a couple of his games like this, especially on Berlingrad for some reason. Maybe he's just like ultra comfortable turtling here. But it feels it was a bit unnecessary. If we would have sieged the tanks with the 3rd wave a little bit quicker, I don't think that we would have even seen this kind of a game. Because this is a lot of Zerg, and these are a lot of Banelings as well. Banelings are going to try to connect with the Marines and Gulls. They're getting pretty decent connections. The Lings are really going to town on all the SCVs that BattleB still had there. at his original third. Of course, the Terran will live off creep, good micro, but SoulSpirit is definitely finding way more success in the second part of this game so far than he found in the first 8 minutes.
Absolutely. See if he can continue that momentum. We are talking about Berlingrad now in the late game, and I mentioned this in the ZVP, but kind of the idea of it gets down to like one very important base pretty quickly. So as they take the corner bases, obviously BattleB could try and mule it out basically as fast as possible. But SoulSpirit, if he doesn't actually get that killing blow, then eventually you might look at your resource, you might look at your banks, Zerg play, and be like, oh, I'm not doing so hot. Like I've lost a lot because he's still on Ling Baneling. It's still suicidal. It's not going to be that resource rate that you get when you get into the 12, 15 lurkers. So that's the only thing I'm worried about late game. But SoulSpirit definitely looks better in the late game currently. And see if you'll find any more openings. That looks pretty locked down to me. I don't know about that one.
I do want to compliment SoulSpirit on his Ling micro against the Widowmine so far. He did a great job in avoiding a couple of potentially disastrous shots, as he is ready to send it with a couple of lightning clouds, takes out a few tanks. Banelings connect to some degree. I have a hard time believing we're going to be able to kill this command center, but we do force to make sure that it lifts off, so it's not going to be a planetary for a little while. But that seemed really expensive on the side of SoulSpirit, and I don't think that BattleB really lost all that much though.
I don't think so either. The supply stayed pretty darn steady. Kind of just chuckling at the snipes on the Banelings. Usually not what you choose to do. And the Hydra's retreating is usually what you use it on. But yeah, that was an excellent defense. SoulSpirit is overreaching a little bit, seeing what he thought was an opening wasn't really quite the case, and not finding any headway. BattleB just goes right back into having that top right base, and he's going to use it as a launching off point to attack into SoulSpirit's 5th. This nuke is going to kill a ghost.
Yeah.
Oh, that was necessary. Oh, just kidding.
Very confused about that ghost dropping the nuke basically inches away from where the ghost was positioned. BattleB does have a good hold once more at the third. 6 extra SCVs go down. A grand total 46 workers have been killed in this game. Only 16 drones. So we killed a couple of drones in the beginning with the Banshees. We got 4 with the Hellions, and we got a few more with a couple of Marines. But that really has been it. I almost feel that BattleB slowed this game down before he truly had to slow this game down, right? Where he's like, oh, don't want to get carried away, don't want to run into lurkers, but there really were no lurkers in sight. He kind of embraced the late game, and he's looking all right at it, as SoulSpirit is going to try to pounce at this 9 o'clock position that no longer has the Liberators, and this planetary is going to go down, so it's basically a base for a base at this point. But we are going to get a couple of extra orbitals, so that is quite nice.
That is really quite nice. I thought one of them was turning into a planetary a couple minutes ago, but no, that was just 3 really free orbitals, and the planetary going down too. That is pretty painful. That is pretty painful, and I absolutely agree. I think you summed it up really well there, is that BattleB didn't necessarily have to go into the slower late game, but he really did choose to. I think, as soon as you saw that Ghost Academy go down, that's kind of at least the sign of the mentality of the Terran player saying, I'm going to prepare for the late game, I'm going to slow things down. But the momentum was really working out for him. That is 21 lurkers. Oh my god. There's 6 ghosts. That's maybe not enough here. That's a lot of lurkers.
You can do some crazy things with 21 lurkers. Now, Liberators are very useful, and even the tanks can, of course, be very useful. But I do think that SoulSpirit is going to try to just surprise BattleB here. BattleB may expect a couple of lurkers, but I don't think he's expecting to go from 0 to 21 lurkers. But now SoulSpirit is kind of going to give him the heads up, and he needs a pause as well. Very unfortunate moment to pause here. Fun game between these two. Nice little scrap. We weren't quite sure if we were going to go for this game or Gerald against Elaser, but I do feel that these two are putting on a proper show for us.
Yeah, I hope the other series is also really good, happening on the B stream, if that hasn't already happened. But yeah, apparently SoulSpirit, I'm imagining what happened is that he got to lurkers, tried to burrow them or start an upgrade or something like that, then realized that his hockey wasn't quite ready to go, which might sound a bit weird, but it happens a decent amount of the time. Just a very action-packed part of the game to have to pause on. I guess the Liberators are sieged up, the tanks are sieged up, no one was trying to pounce, so there are worse moments to pause. But he is, definitely in a bit of a pickle. Just the fact that the Terran army is so close to his natural already, but with 21 lurkers, you think he'd be able to buy a lot of time.
That is painful, though. Using triple abduct, the Banelings are going to crash into the Ghosts and into the Marauders, as BattleB was still dealing with that army on the left side. We used triple abduct. We didn't kill a single Liberator, but the rest of the fight went a lot better for SoulSpirit. but he didn't win on the left side though. BattleB was not microing on the right because he was controlling this army. Obviously got a decent trade as 4 tanks are still left over, and he takes out another important base. This is kind of what StarCraft 2 is all about, right? It's not about losing one base, game over. Nope, they're both dropping bases left and right and just trying to re-establish new economies. A lot of things going down there though. SoulSpirit getting some pretty important pickups, and he still has 15 lurkers on the battlefield.
This is kind of a crazy game. SoulSpirit, I think, identifying that he still has enough lurkers to really be a threat, just moves over to the left side, finds all these tanks really quite alone, and they don't do well when they're alone, picks that up, and then was hoping to still catch BattleB just before his reinforcement wave came through, so they could actually get on top of that natural. And if BattleB was a little more broke or a little bit slower in his gameplay, he might have been able to do so. The Liberators aren't sieged, the Ghosts aren't out, suddenly you're actually camping. The Terran production is obviously a big determiner of who's going to win the game, but stop just short of it. We'll see if he can inch his way forward. Means that BattleB can try to rebuild the better army, but he's starting to bleed out even these Ghosts, some of the Abducts. These lurkers are about to stop the mining in the top right base, and without that base mining, BattleB's down to literally just like one, maybe half a base.
Yeah, no, he needs to make sure that he can mine up this base. Now we see the accidental Reaper. That's when you know the Terran is under a lot of pressure. As more SCVs are gonna fall, we might have to repair that, or that planetary too. You don't want to lose the planetary. He will save it for now, but SoulSpirit is still just going for all of it in the natural. Picks up another tank. He is bleeding out a lot of Hydras as well. Running into that planetary fortress is painful. Does get on top of the factories in the natural. What a game between these two. Liberators working overtime, and suddenly it's SoulSpirit who has dropped a lot of supply, maybe getting a little ahead of himself.
Yeah, absolutely getting ahead of himself. A lot of that rally going to that planetary was excellent for BattleB, but then also actually losing lurkers at the top right. As much as he delayed the mining, he didn't actually kill the base. And now if he doesn't retreat, I'm afraid he's going to lose too many lurkers because there's enough Ghosts. Absolutely, the lurkers could be lost. He's going to try and retreat on the left side, loses 2 of them. And he's going to lose the other 2 that are still stuck there as well, forcing a couple of scans. But despite a couple of orbitals, more than a couple of orbitals going down, BattleB was kind of a beast when it came to building orbitals. He still has so many.
Yep. You know what I absolutely love there is as soon as the Reaper popped, it went on the low ground and it was fighting 3 links. He's like, oh no, the Reaper hops back into the main. I was like, I love it. Just pretend it was all part of the plan, that Reaper buying some time, soaking up a couple of shots, and we're still going to micro it. We don't want to lose it. As a tank is going to seize at the bottom of the ramp. The Liberators are very problematic. There is 1 Hydra on the field, somebody dropped. 1 Hydra, 5 Queens. I don't see 5 Queens over here. And sure, we have a couple of Vipers for a parasitic bomb. I think 1 barrel bomb there would actually damage both lips. So I wouldn't even hate seeing him throw that down. Yeah, this is once more very problematic. SoulSpirit thought he had it. He thought he almost broke the opponent. We're going to go for abducts, but yeah, if we abduct units, we need anti-air.
Yeah, I think he was hoping that he would be able to punch it after abducting, because obviously it de-sieges them, but unsieges. But it wasn't going to work out either way. So now he's going to try and reposition, but after losing the Vipers to the snipe, he's going to try and get a big ol' surround. Nice good pickup there from the Medivacs, and still going into the Liberators. The Banelings crash in on mostly a tank. The Lurkers get taken out by the Liberators, and that was SoulSpirit's last engagement. He taps out. That was topsy-turvy, and it certainly looked like for a minute there, SoulSpirit was about to win. At the end of the day, BattleB 20-plus minute game takes game 1.
Yeah, lovely. Just had a bit of everything. It felt that the early game was heavily in favor of BattleB, especially the initial trades with his first tank. He kept his first push alive when the second wave showed up, and that is always very problematic for a Zerg. But then SoulSpirit had a pretty decent little engagement where he came in from the bottom left as well. Wasn't quite good enough yet. But then while BattleB was waiting for the third wave of tanks and Marines, that's when SoulSpirit went for it, and he finally got very good baiting connections. And then all hell broke loose, and we just had a lot of lurkers, ghosts, liberators. Just a really fun scrap between these two. Could have gone either way. It really could have. Like, if it wasn't for that random planetary getting 18 kills, maybe it is SoulSpirit who doesn't just break the natural, but actually gets into the main base, and that's where things become very problematic for the Terran.
Yeah, exactly. If BattleB wasn't... Yeah, I guess it's fast. I mean, I'd have to watch the replay all over again to see exactly how much cash he had to build 4 Ghosts and 2 Liberators, wherever it was. But I feel like that was really the difference of the army getting into the main base or not, was just that couple last round of reinforcements that could have easily not been made if you have 1,000 less minerals, which is really easy in a 20-minute game, or you just aren't as fast, basically, if you don't have 400 APM. So he was able to stop, probably the most threatening push of the game, and then recover, which was quite important. So BattleB showing some, what's the good word for stubbornness? Some vitality there. And let's see if he can continue on in the second game. I feel like you wouldn't want to play a super late game after that, though, as good as it is that he recovered, that he showed some real spirit there. That seems more difficult than it had to be, considering the first 10 minutes went the way it did.
For sure. And SoulSpirit, even though he didn't win that game, definitely showed us a lot of really good stuff too, especially the Ling micro against the Widow Mines. I think every Zerg out there that's not a top tier pro gamer will know how damn difficult that is. But he avoided like 6 or 7 potential Widow Mine disasters in a row on purpose, splitting the Lings up, or at least 1 or 2 Lings up over and over again, and made it up to Hive, made it up to Lurkers, went from 0 to 21 real quick. Hope to see more of that in the rest of the tournament for him, because that was a good showing, even if he didn't get the W. In the bottom left side, they are teammates representing Alien Esports, the French Zerg player SoulSpirit.
Still has some hockey issues.
A race issue. Can't build Marines.
Yeah, right. Keyboard issue? It's not
Yeah.
It might be. I have a keyboard that, I mean, I've had this keyboard for years. So I kind of figure what other keyboards are like, but there's a plugin on the keyboard, right? And every so often it gets a little pushed, and then I just can't type. It's surprisingly never happened during a StarCraft game, but it happens all the time when I'm typing out, long rants to my friends on Discord.
What is the plugin? I don't get it.
I can maybe show you it. Like, it plugs in there.
Oh, you mean the cable can come in and out?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So it's not just like, I know some other keyboards, like there's no plug on this side, So this keyboard, you can take the plug entirely out of the equation, but it's actually more annoying. I'd prefer the plug to be like, sealed in basically to the keyboard.
I had a keyboard like that as well. I was like, is it this one? Nope. This one is actually just sealed in by the looks of it. I know what you mean. I mean, I guess it is nice if something bad would happen to your cable, then you only need a new cable. You don't need an entire new keyboard.
Yeah, except I never am tempted to take the cable out, so I'm probably even more. I'm making it closer to being damaged.
Yeah, but imagine if your cats destroy the wire, but the keyboard is still perfectly fine. Then you just need a new cable.
I mean, that does actually happen. Apollo eats cables all the time. So
there you have it.
You're not wrong. Not wrong.
They're looking out for all the crazy people with cats out there. All right, I think the keyboard works again of SoulSpirit. We just got an AA into the game. Oh, sorry, my keyboard was not working for some reason. We kind of figured that one out. I love how the referee just put a question mark as well. It's like, what is happening? It's like, well, if he's not typing, it's probably keyboard related.
Probably, yeah. I love how the question mark is really, I don't know, it's bridged, obviously languages, right? Thank goodness for that. But it's also just, it's now something you can use in so many different scenarios. We haven't introduced this guy because of that pause. Let's do it real quick. Top right, up 1, it's BattleB.
Second play day for both of these guys. BattleB had a great start at 2-0 over Christiana. The Polish Protoss has made it into the playoffs in the past of the European regionals, and SoulSpirit has never made it into the playoffs, but he has been part of the main event. I believe SoulSpirit lost his opening play day to Elaser it was. So he lost a ZVZ 0-2 against Elaser, but of course, no shame in that.
Yeah, of course not. Well, Laser also being the most recent pick of Team Liquid. They're just buying everyone up.
So cool, right? I'm really happy for Miko. I think it's a great, lovely. He was with Ego Esports for a while, and I do believe that he was very happy with them. He had a lot of good words about them, but Liquid Elaser, it rolls off the tongue nicely, and it just sounds good. And I really hope that we can see peak Elaser one more time. 2017 Elaser all over again. Be fantastic.
He's gotten real close, I gotta say. I mean, it feels weird. I mean, I guess we shouldn't talk about him too much because he's not in the game right now, but it feels weird that he hasn't been, top 4, top 8 so reliably. But it is a difficult world out there when your name's not Cyril or Raynor, I suppose. And certainly SoulSpirit can attest to that. It's been a difficult series so far, even though he's able to almost bring it back in that late game. It still was not quite enough. Maybe a bit of overzealousness, a little bit overstaying his welcome. Definitely the first 10 minutes of that game, not going particularly well. So maybe that's the big difference, is that he has to kind of solidify the opening a bit more, and then he can play around in the mid and late game like he did last time.
He does like Hydra Link Bane. Actually, now that I'm casting him on Hardwire, a while ago I casted a ridiculous game of SoulSpirit, and I want to say it was against Baby Marine, but I'm not totally sure if it was. But it was a never-ending Hydra Link Bane attack, and every single time I was like, this is it! It's now or never. It really wasn't now or never. It just continued for like 22 minutes, and in the end, both players went down to like 12 workers or so. It was madness. And he's pretty damn good with it, but he does get a bit carried away sometimes, where he can deal a lot of damage, and then instead of trying to close it out by making a few more drones at home, he can be a bit stubborn and keep going for it, as he almost gets the Reaper here. Unfortunately for him, not quite.
BattleB is once again setting up 3CC into, I'm going to go ahead and assume the Starport's going to swap over into the Banshees. Super safe opener that even found some success last game, and then let him go into his mid-game push. No,
like, maybe not today. In before Raven, though.
That would be unique. I feel like the only guy I see go for Raven every now and again, not even all that commonly, is Special. I know some Terrans have incorporated it, but...
Yeah, there was a short period where it became a bit more popular, where they're like, oh, look at us, we can kill creep tumors all day and we don't have to scan.
I feel like there maybe was a month where it was popular, and then maybe again, like all the Terrans collectively decided it was too hard. Because that is honestly one of the biggest things, even for the pros, about usage of the Raven, is that, you know, in TVP, it's undeniably a great thing to have. TVT as well. Like, they're just like Raven, 10 out of 10, S tier unit. TVZ, aside from the whole no scanning thing, is like, it's B or maybe A. Maybe that's a bit too harsh. But then you compare it to when Raven was a popular opener, and the auto turret range was bigger, and Abyssal Reef existed, and then it was S tier again, so Terrans got it a lot.
I mean, that was pretty ridiculous, though, once that Raven was sitting there between two bases. As in the previous game, we were pretty crazy with the Hellions, and we're going to be about as crazy this time around. Late pull there by SoulSpirit, ends up losing 4, should lose 5. Yeah, exactly, BattleB. Finished that one off, as it was ultra low on HP. That's a little bit sloppy. We have an Overlord there. We're supposed to keep track of those Hellions, because... I mean, you look at a perfect game of Raynor, Cyril, Lambo. How often do you see a couple of Hellions killing 5 drones, unless they actually truly go for it and gets around and get picked off? Like BattleB just getting in there, killing 5 drones and getting out with almost all the units, or actually all of them in this case. That's the kind of stuff that SoulSpirit does need to clean up a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. 5 drones there, and then maybe another 5 with the double Banshee hitting the main base. I do feel like with the double Banshee being what Terrans wait for 9 out of 10 times, no more just sending the first one across the map, they'll hopefully find someone unprepared. It does usually guarantee them at least 3, just picking off the gas, extractor drones type of situation. So that's what I'm expecting here. And then again, last game, you got 5.
Here we go. Queens are very far out of position. Let's see how good the Banshee micro is this time around. We grab 3 immediately, and he's a bit overly passive now, but I think he's going to try to get lucky with the Hellions one more time. He's like, all right, here are my Banshees. Queens are out of position. Here come the Hellions. Drones are a little bit clumped up. I don't think that's enough links, by the way. SoulSpirit. He's chasing with like 8 links. That's not going to be good enough, and we're still struggling with the Banshees as well. Did the Banshees see the Spire? They must have, right? No. Wow. So close, but... didn't quite see it.
Yeah, just a little bit too far off to the right. I mean, SoulSpirit could have made it even more insured by going off to the right to the spawning pool, but yeah, he has so far been undetected in his plans. But even though he might get a little bit of a jump on the SCV damage, it's very possible, he still is taking so much drone damage that he he has to, right? He has to do damage with the mutas, not just because you sacrifice, upgrades to do this. You really do put an investment into the mutas, but because he has taken damage from the early game.
What is this? A PVZ Phoenix opening from a couple of years ago. BattleB has lost 0 resources so far and has killed 29 units. So a flawless game. That, of course, is not going to last when the mutas and banelings are out, but there goes another Overlord. These are numbers we don't see very often. This is really clean play by the German Terran.
Right, and a little unclean from SoulSpirit, right? It's very late to reacting to the supply block and then gets the Overlord killed, so he's just having trouble right now getting as many, not mutas, still a little limited on gas, but as many lings as you would hope. And because, I mean, the timing happens the way that it does, a lot of the time the muta have to make that decision between going across the map to deal damage or trying to support back at home.
Still
it
0
looks like-
units lost. Yeah, still lost 0
Oh, there we
units.
go, there we go.
Finally, 1 Marine and then 3 Marines fall, but 45-3. That is honestly quite crazy. It's, of course, not necessarily going to guarantee the victory, but it's going to feel really good. Now, we are getting a bit too carried away as we are unloading those Marines right next to a Baneling. So finally, SoulSpirit catches the tiniest of breaks, but that's really all it truly is.
I was wondering why BattleB pulled back, because he had brought all of his Hellions in a tank again, and I thought he was really going to push. But I think he might have pulled back because he realized combat shields hadn't started. So that was a little awkward. Because that could have been a push that kind of just like stayed there and been really quite a threat, but instead it turned into a drop that then was miscontrolled in the last second. So just a little bit more awkward. But these mutas, they did go across the map. They don't find much damage. 1 SCV went down.
I do like the 8 Marine drop that's going to head into the main base. If the mutas are all the way on the other side of the map, there is that super late combat shield. It is going to finish up, I think, in time. Ooh, matter of fact, has a lot of Marines inside of it. Nice contaminate on it. Now, this is getting all a little bit clumsy as we have that 8 Marine drop into the triangle base of SoulSpirit as well. Good save there by BattleB. In the end, the man will get his combat shield. But once more, I felt like flawless first 7 minutes. And then, starting to get a little bit sloppy, but he's still in a great spot, of course.
Yeah, I think he's still okay. It's just, you're right, got a little sloppy. I mean, that pickup probably felt a little funny to BattleB as well, as he realized that he picked up 4 units that didn't attack up, 2 units that did. But he does clear things out. And now that it's stabilized, I mean, you're not talking about platinum versus platinum here. There's not going to be like 30 mutas. There's only going to be a finite amount that are probably going to be handled by reinforcements at home. You got to kind of get to that push. You got to actually start pushing the Zerg player, hopefully getting those mutas on this side of the map as well, if you can. So far, they are going to head across.
Look at the Queens. They're just kind of all by themselves in the center of the map as the mutas are going to counterattack. I think SoulSpirit is just going to give up on this, or is he actually going to try to fight this? As the mutas will find a lot of SCV damage on the other side, but I kind of feel like we need a couple of units at home because 2-2 upgrades are about to finish up as well. At least SoulSpirit will be able to work with 1-1, but he's still going to be down 2 full upgrades, and he's going to be forced to run into tanks that are already sieged up. Here we go. This is it. SoulSpirit needs an absolutely phenomenal fight here. Can the Banelings connect with the Marines? The answer is no, not even close. Fantastic fight there by BattleB.
Well, there's a Widowmine on the right. I think there was too many Banelings coming from the right side to begin with. They weren't really anywhere close to the Marines, but then a Widowmine popped off and killed like 12 of them right off the bat. Little bit too much of a dive, however, especially with weakened Marines from all the sims and damage that they took already. So the Banelings caught a lot of connections, but I think the first attack was already too poor. 40 supply difference. The mutas do take out the Thor, but mutas are not a fighting army. Lings are not a fighting army. He needs those Banelings, and only a couple, literally a couple, are on the way.
Yeah, it is not going to be enough, and I think SoulSpirit knows that too. 15 mutas are nice. I don't think BattleB needs to go all the way back. I would say just keep around the center of the map, stick around there, throw down a scan, push the creep back a little bit, and keep a couple of Marines that you're rallying at home to deal with these mutas if they continue to be annoying. Sensor tower gets cancelled. We're going to try to get a missile turret. I don't even know if we're going to get that missile turret. I'm very inclined to say the answer is no, as there are Widow Mines and Marines to rescue it too. It's kind of over this one, unless SoulSpirit can pull off a true modern-day miracle.
Well, BattleB runs on a creep a couple more times into the Banelings. That'd be nice. That'd be nice for SoulSpirit. So I do think it's a situation where you don't just tap out right now because it's Savage. I think you actually do have that hope, considering how some of the previous battles have ended up going. Wouldn't mind just pop off on the mutas, huh?
Yeah, 2 of them. 2 of them. So this is kind of, I think, the last-ditch effort here for SoulSpirit. All the pennies that he was able to collect have been turned into Banelings. He still has 22 of them. On creep, he's going to do all right. Off creep, it is always going to be a disaster. We're going to use quite a few Banelings on the Thor. That's not quite a trade. Okay, those Baneling connections were absolutely fantastic, as I think BattleB was busy dealing with the last few mutas in the main base. Has taken care of most of them. Those were sweet connections, but I just think it's a day late and a dollar short, as SoulSpirit is kind of broke and really doesn't have a whole lot to work with anymore.
Yeah, 67 drones, 4 bases is not a lot to work with Ling Baneling and mutas that are dying all the time as well. Maybe if you had been perfect muta control and still had 17 of them, that's a frightening number with +2, but since he has to replace those, he has less to replace Ling Baneling, so on and so forth. And while maybe it's not game over yet, with that 3-3 timing on the way, that would definitely do it.
BattleB throws down a scan in the main base as well, wants to see if he's on the clock or not. Is there anything crazy that he needs to worry about? The answer is no. No infestation pit, no hive, no lurker den, of course, or anything along those lines. It is just Muda Ling Bane, so he doesn't really have to look at anything at home anymore. This time around, we can fully focus on controlling our Marines as well as we possibly can. We can see if we can make Big Gay proud, as another German Terran has truly arrived on the scene. 2-0 in the biggest online league in Europe is very impressive for BattleB, and 4-0 in maps.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Fantastic start for BattleB, who's just looking to close this game off. In particular, well, with this new wave of reinforcements, that might do it. SoulSpirit, yeah, is going to finally tap out here. Obviously, on the worst side